PK in the universe, and I'm back again, here with a little bit of a rant video. Doing a little bit of a rant on the newest Evercade game of the month. First of all, I want to apologize for the noises in the background if you're hearing a lot of stuff and heaters. At the time of this recording, it's like -7 degrees out, so usually I just turn the heaters off when I do recordings, but I'm keeping the heaters on tonight. It's cold. So, but anyways, let's get to the main point of this video, and let's talk about Gelatinous, Humanity Lost. Gelatinous Humanity Lost is the newest Evercade game of the month. If you're not familiar with Evercade Game of the Month, basically every month a game from an upcoming Indie Heroes collection will be on the Evercade VS. And so, yeah, this is the last one of the year. It's Gelatinous Humanity Lost. It's by John Rue from the Retro Room and Stephen Long. And yeah, it was a two-man dev team. They put this together, and I had backed this on Kickstarter, so I have had this game for a while. Hadn't played it much. Like, I'd played a little bit of it, but had never gotten very far. When I found out it was coming to Evercade and it was going to be the game of the month, I was excited. I'm like, I want to play this game. Heck yeah. I want to play it on Evercade because I, obviously like Evercade and I like Game Boy games. So this kind of felt like a win-win, So, but anyways, there's been a lot of YouTube videos about Gelatinous Humanity Lost, and from the Evercade community, and there's been was surprising for me at least. There's a lot of negativity about it, and again, I hadn't played really all that much of it, so I wanted to, I want to talk about how I feel about this game personally, and I also want to talk about how I feel about some of the negativity I've seen about it, and kind of, do I think it's well-founded or not, sort of thing. So that's what kind of video this is going to be. It's a bit of a rant video. And yeah, I'm going to talk about my thoughts on it and why people maybe feel the way they do. So here we go. First up, let's talk about how I feel about this game. I had backed it on Kickstarter. Didn't know a whole lot about it, but I really liked what I saw. I'd seen the trailer. And so I finally started playing this game. Finally started playing it on Evercade. I played a little bit on my Game Boy, but I never got too far because I knew the game was difficult. I knew it was a little bit cryptic, but man, yeah, it's a very challenging game. It's fair to even say that it's a frustrating game. It's fair to say that, but I really liked it. Actually, I had a lot of fun with it. This is one of, I don't know. I wouldn't say, I don't know. It's hard to say. I don't know if it's definitely not one of those that I didn't like. I can tell you which games on the Indie Heroes collection I didn't like. And maybe I'll talk about that later here, but I did not think, some people had said this is the worst game on the Indie Heroes collection too, or this is a bad game. And you know what? I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that at all. I think it's frustrating, yes, challenging, even cryptic in some areas, is difficult platforming, but a bad game? No. Honestly, it's not like, there's some rough edges. That's fair. I think it's fair to say there's rough edges in this game. But this game is not that hard, especially not with save states. That was one thing, was playing this on the original Game Boy, there were no save states, obviously. With Evercade, of course, we get save states, and it's on a bigger screen, which I think can affect things too. I played some of the Game Boy games that have been on Evercade, and you know what? The best times I ever had playing those was when I was actually playing on the handheld versus playing it actually on the VS. Whether it be Quest Arrest or Dead Use or what's that other game, I don't remember. But those games always seem to, translate so much better on the small screen versus the big screen. So, but also, I think that's something to consider is the fact that, Game Boy games, how we view these Game Boy games, these are indie games, Some people, me personally, when I think of a Game Boy game, I think of a short game, typically. A game that's either between 1 to 4 hours. When you're using save states, this game is like an hour long, from my experience. I'm not very good at video games, guys. I'm not the best. But it's only took me an hour with save states. And the save checkpoints were pretty well spread out, perfectly spread out, I think. I don't think they were too far away from each other. And there was multiple checkpoints, I don't get it. I don't get why people didn't like this, But I also think part of maybe why people didn't like this, we're not expecting this kind of difficulty is, again, games like Dead Use and Quest Arrest were not super challenging by any means, whereas this game is like the total opposite. when you think of Game Boy games, you don't always think of games that are challenging. You think of games that you could beat in like 1 to 4 hours, you know. But there are some exceptions, of course. You know, something like Legend of Zelda: Link's Awakening or Final Fantasy Adventure obviously take a lot of time, but the average Game Boy game, you know, they're not well fleshed out stories. They're micro bits of fun. You know, they're just, you know, a little bit of fun. You know, and I think maybe a lot of people were expecting this would be, you know, like another game kind of like Deadius or something like that, but nothing compares to Lunar Journey. Lunar Journey was a really small, bite-sized, fun game that just has very little to any challenge whatsoever. Whereas this game is the opposite in every sense of the word. This is a very difficult, frustrating game, but I thought it was still fun. I had so much fun playing it. There's so many moments where I was like totally on the edge of my seat, and I felt so good when I figured something out. That, like, you know, where I'm like, oh, this is so tough. This is so tough. And then I got it and I'm like, yes! That's how I felt about this game. This is a game I could see people doing like speed runs of. This would be really a challenge game. This would be, I could see one of these, you know, this being like a Katie's challenge kind of thing. On the Evercade like Discord or something, you know, people just trying to play through this game. This is a challenging game. And you're not expecting that usually with a Game Boy game. I think too, you know, maybe everybody doesn't look at, I was trying to allude back to something else before I was rambling on here, is that, you know, when we think of arcade games that are ported to the NES, we think of, you know, these games are hard, but we know why they're hard, because there's two reasons they are hard typically. It's because they were an arcade game that got ported or demade, I guess, on the NES, so, you know, the games were originally designed to be quarter munchers, so games are naturally hard. Or this game was like a video rental game or something, you know what I mean? There was something you'd get at the video rental store back in the day, and the developers typically, no, the developers, maybe not so much them, but the publishers typically, they wanted to sell these games to more than just video rental stores. So obviously there would be some incentive for the developers to make the game more hard so somebody couldn't just beat the game in a weekend, you know, and then never go buy the game, because you wanted people to buy the games. That's the idea. So games were intentionally hard. That's where the term NES hard comes from. And, you know, when you think of a Game Boy game, like something like Super Mario Land, you know, easy game, can be rebeat really quickly. You know, you think of easier games. Like my first experience beating any video games when I was a kid was on the Game Boy. I didn't beat a console game till like the Super NES when I got Mario RPG. That was the first game I ever beat. So when a lot of people think, oh, Game Boy game, I'm like, oh, this will be just quick, easy fun. And then it's like, and it was difficult fun, I guess. So I can understand why some people were turned off. I can understand why some people were rubbed the wrong way by this game. But at the same time, I don't really agree at all with the people who say it's a bad game or it is the worst game on all of Evercade. I think that is absolute an exaggeration. I mean, if I had to be honest, of the games that were in the Game of the Month, you know, for the last year, I personally did not like the Cowlitz collection, and I could not stand that game. I personally thought that was the worst game. And there were some people who didn't have anything bad to say about that, and I'm like, really? Really, that game? Even my son didn't like that game. I personally didn't like the previous Game of the Month, what's it called? Yeah, Beavis or 2 or something like that. I didn't like that game at all. My son, on the other hand, loved that game. Everybody has different tastes. Totally understandable. We all have different tastes. But I was kind of like just dumbfounded. I'm like, this game? It wasn't even that hard. I mean, yes, it's difficult and frustrating, but, you know, it's over pretty quickly. So, you know, and I totally understand why somebody wouldn't get the physical copy. I totally understand. After, if you've played it on the Evercade, you probably wouldn't be like, oh, I'm going to go seek out that physical game and spend $50+ or whatever, which is what I did. Of course, I backed it on Kickstarter, you know. I mean, we all have our biases, you know. But what really confused me is, like, when this game first came to Game Boy, when the videos were coming out, when people were actually playing it, I hardly saw any negativity whatsoever. There was like one guy. If you go through all these, you know, scour through all these YouTube videos, there's like one person maybe with a dissenting opinion. Wasn't too keen on that guy, but yeah, and it's like, I don't know. So why is that? Why do you guys think that? I have a theory. I think a lot of retro gamers and Evercade gamers aren't always the same kind of gamers. there's a lot of old school hardcore retro gamers who just love the challenge of an NES game. They love the challenge. So, a Game Boy game isn't much of a stretch, So they were like, oh yeah, this is a challenge to me and I enjoy this challenge. Whereas maybe there's some people in the Evercade community who, basically, if Evercade's the thing you primarily play, you're used to having save states. It's just a normal thing. So, you're expecting a game that's not going to be that difficult. And again, look at the games we've seen on the Game of the Month. Something like Lunar Journey. After playing something like Lunar Journey and going to this, that'd be like, whoa, you know what I mean? So, I don't want to say that, Evercade gamers aren't hardcore gamers, because there are Evercade players who do speed runs, but I think maybe a large swath of people who do typically do use save states, not for competition reasons or something. I don't think it's right to use save states, obviously, for competition. If you're doing competitions with your Evercade games or whatever, obviously I don't condone that, and I don't think that's right. But I'm just trying to say it is like, maybe the typical person who was watching those videos was like, one, they like the graphics, so they like that old school look, or two, they were used to hard games, so that could be what it is. But yeah, overall, I feel like, also you got to understand the context of what this game being made. It was made by a two-person dev team, and I don't know how much time they spent on it. I can't imagine they spent more than a year on this game. So, they put this game together, and yeah, I feel like I'm the kind of person, like, when I see an indie dev, I can tell when someone's worked hard on it. This game wasn't unplayable by any stretch of the imagination. It was, you can tell they put some serious effort in it. They definitely put a lot of serious effort into the case, and they put a lot of effort into the instruction manual. It made it feel like an old school Game Boy game. I think overall, people will definitely enjoy this just a little more on the handheld, whether it be a regular Evercade or an Evercade EXP. But yeah, I totally disagree with the people who say this is a bad game. I'm sorry, but it's not. I've played way worse games than this. I mean, go on itch.io. There's some Game Boy games that definitely have not been finished that are on itch.io, where I'm kind of like, really? It's like, but that's so, it's like, it's a bad game compared to what? You know what I mean? So no, I disagree with the people who say this is a bad game. I had a lot of fun with it, and again, it's a game that does not hold your hand. It's hardcore, which, I just got done playing Astronaut not that long ago, and that didn't have save states. And I feel like this game, is Astronaut harder than this game? Well, Astronaut's longer. And yeah, you could say, well, Astronaut was made with one dev. Yeah, and that one dev was, working on that game for over 3 years. This was definitely put together a lot quicker. And I don't know what John and Steven's budget was, or how much time they had to make this. This isn't their primary job, I don't think. I think they have family lives to balance and all that stuff. So yes, I can understand totally. And I personally have tried to make my own game before. I have tried to do that, and I still am going to do that someday. I've just kind of been, putting it off a bit here. But I've invested in trying to design my own game. I've invested 50, 60 hours and still haven't made nothing. I can't imagine how much time they spent on this. And and here's the thing. You don't have to be a game developer to have an opinion about, how somebody designed a game. Just like you don't have to, be a cook to, appreciate good food or not like food or whatever. You don't have to be a cook to know how to eat. It's like, I can use the cook metaphor because I've been both, obviously. When I was actually in the military for almost 10 years, and I actually spent a huge chunk of that time as a cook. Actually, I cooked really good food, and then there were times where I was, deployed overseas, and we were giving people A rations. And I think the people who we were giving A rations understood that we were, this was what we had. So so they had to, most people were fair and managed their expectations. And I think that's what you could do with this game. You could manage your expectations. I wasn't expecting this to be some masterpiece, or demanding perfection, but some people feel that way for whatever reason. And they're allowed to feel that way. Whether that has any weight in my mind is, well, not really. But, again, that's opinions. That's being on the internet, letting people have their opinion, and Yeah, but I disagree with it. You know, I feel like there were a couple of YouTube channels though. I have to say did a really nice job covering the Evercade Game of the Month. Ed over at Evercade Effect and Boy and His Dog Retro Edition. I think they did a really. They were fair. You know, they had. You know, I feel like those guys, you know, managed their expectation. Totally would understand why somebody wouldn't spend $50 for this game, but at the same time, I'm like, some people were just harsh as all hell, honestly. And again, that's their opinion. They're allowed to have that opinion, but at the same time, I'm like, I also wanted to make a video talking about, like, I don't know, like, I don't want to say that this is a video where I'm just trying to justify my purchase. You know, it's like I still would have enjoyed this game regardless of whether I backed it on Kickstarter or not, because it was just so like, man, there was just so many cool moments that just kept sucking me back in after I get frustrated. You know, just I like a challenge once in a while. I mean, every game can't be Lunar Journey and Deadius, which are both awesome games, by the way, on Evercade and Game Boy, of course. So yeah, I just wanted to say that, you know, I don't agree with the people who are super negative about this, and that I had a lot of fun with this game, and yeah, I definitely recommend it. If you're looking for a Game Boy game that's a challenge, and you're planning on getting Indie Heroes 2 next year, definitely give this one a good shot, you know, and if you have an Evercade VS, definitely give it a shot. But maybe you're one of those people who just got an Evercade EXP or a regular handheld Evercade. Yeah, definitely, I would recommend getting Indie Heroes 2. There's going to be so many awesome games on that, and this is going to be, I think this is one of them. I think this is a fun game. I wouldn't say this is my favorite game on Indie Heroes 2, but it is definitely not the worst game or my least favorite game. That's just my opinion. But anyways, I wouldn't usually say what is your thoughts on this, but I know you're going to comment in the comments section or give me a thumbs up or thumbs down. So I'm going to end the video this way. Just because a video game was designed specifically for a handheld doesn't necessarily mean it needs to hold your hand. Anyways, I gotta go. It's getting kind of cold here, so yeah, stay awesome in this universe. Thanks. Bye.